If you have been following some of my video tutorials, you might have already seen me using the small CLI program Boilerplates, mostly to create Docker Compose stacks, because the problem is, whenever I'm making a tutorial, you most likely need to customize many variable names and settings, like different port numbers, different domains. Some of you might want to use traffic labels, some others might not. Maybe you want to use Postgres, maybe you prefer using SQLite, and that's exactly what Boilerplates is for. It lets me build templates in a much more variable and modular way, so instead of having to copy one static config file and changing it for everybody, you can use the tool and my templates to generate something that actually fits your setup. For example, to just generate a simple Docker Compose stack for Git T, a self-hosted Git service platform, you can use my template and customize some of the important settings, like setting up different time zones, different user IDs, restart policies, set up your public URL, choose your database backend, SSH ports and web ports, and you can even enable specific traffic labels with a customized host name or a fully qualified domain name that you're using in your home lab, enable TLS settings and certificate resolvers, and the tool generates a compose.yaml file that you can basically at most of the time just copy and paste to your servers and deploy this. And that of course is much easier. And now with the version 0.2.0 of Boilerplates, I implemented many important changes. Some of them are honestly more behind the scenes, so they may not be relevant for every one of you. But if you're heavily using Boilerplates, or if you're thinking about maybe at some day building your own templates or changing and customizing some of mine, this update is actually very interesting, and it also certainly leads the way to a whole new version in the next 2 or 3 months. And that update now is really important for the foundation and standardization of our templates. So beside a new logo, I hope you like this, the actual process still stays the same, at least for now. You just go to release, just copy the one-line installation command, run this on your device or on your servers, and that installs the small Python CLI program of Boilerplates to your setup. Once that is done, you can just run the Boilerplates script in your terminal, and that lets you browse my libraries, something like the Compose stacks that I'm publishing. Don't forget, after updating to the new version 0.2.0, to run a Boilerplates repo update, because that synchronizes the new template library that I have configured. And this is one of the new biggest changes that I've done, because previously, we had the Boilerplates GitHub repository where I'm completely open sourcing the CLI program and all of the files and modules, but also the libraries with all the templates that it contained. For example, here for Git here, you can see the compose.yaml file with a .j2 extension and also the template.yaml file. And now I've split this into a new library because I wanted to have the CLI program completely separated from my Boilerplates library that contains all the templates, so that we can clearly separate the application development from the actual self-hosted infrastructure management template library. I think this is a pretty important step. From now on, if you have trouble with the Boilerplates application itself, so when you discovered a bug, then raise it on the Boilerplates GitHub. But if you encounter a problem because a template is broken, something that didn't render correctly, or if you're requesting new templates, then please raise the issue from now on in the Boilerplates library GitHub repository. I've also transferred some of your community requests with a template wish list to this new library, so I didn't just forget everything that you originally sent me. I know I've been a bit lazy the last month, and I apologize for that, but I just wanted to invest some time into making this release more consistent and lead the way into the new Boilerplates application that's going to be in open beta release the next 2 or 3 months. And therefore, I also introduced many different changes regarding the template syntax. If you previously have taken a look at the actual templates, I had a template.yaml file and the actual template files with a J2 extension for the Jinja 2 syntax engine that I was using to inject some of the variables and if-else conditions into these templates. And in the YAML file, there we had all the metadata, like the variable specification, the version, then the description and stuff like that. Now that format completely changed, and I switched from using YAML to JSON. I've done that because I found out that YAML is nice for humans to read, but it's not really efficient for Python programming to be interpreted. That can lead to some performance issues, and also because the YAML parameters are not ordered, I had to find a way to somehow sort these variables. Now with the JSON format, we can actually define these variables in a sorted way, and they always follow the same ordering. What also changed, the actual template files now have to be in a separate folder called files, so all of the files in this directory will be rendered regardless of their extension, so it doesn't have to be J2. Here you might also see, if you are familiar with the Boilerplates templates, that I also changed the delimiters. So that means we had two curly brackets for a variable, a curly bracket and a percentage character for if-else statements, for loops, and so on. Now I changed this, and I used angled brackets for variables and an angle bracket and a percentage for if-else statements, for loops, and other conditional statements. And the reason for this is because once I started building Ansible templates, Ansible itself often uses Jinja 2 for specific instructions or injecting variables inside the Ansible playbooks. And that, of course, always introduced conflicts with the Boilerplates template engine, because they're basically using the same rendering engines. And that's why I defined, let's just use these delimiters that will avoid many collisions with other programming languages or tools that might use curly brackets. The syntax is still the same, you just have to use these different delimiters. But yeah, that's it about the templating syntax and the runtime. I've also changed a few definitions of variables. I added one new variable type, and that is called secret. Now, secret has a special function. It will not just hide the variable output, but it will also have some configuration options to be auto-generated, because some Compose templates or some applications require the secret or encryption keys to be defined in a specific format or have specific lengths of characters. So here in the config settings, we can define that secrets have to be auto-generated in a specific way. I will update the wiki documentation soon if you're interested in that. We also have placeholders that will be relevant for a new web interface that we're going to build at some point in the future. And of course, descriptions, required or not required definitions, or dependencies between certain variables can still be configured this way. And yeah, there are other things. For example, for the enumeration types, the options have been migrated to the config settings. There are a few small changes here and there, but I don't want to go through each and everything. You just have to read the documentation if you want to get more details about that. Now, one thing that I also want to show you, this is going to be shown in my next tutorial as well. But for example, if we just want to generate a git t deployment and not in the dry run, so we will generate this, we want to deploy this on one of my servers, we go and customize some of the settings. Yeah, fine, I'm just going to go through all of that stuff because I want to show you at the end this new prompt here, store generated template in local. So this will prompt you to specify a directory. So usually that is the current local directory and a subfolder that is the same as the template name. But you could also choose, and you might have already seen this here, remote. So that means that it can automatically upload this template or this boilerplate with all the files and the rendered variables and stuff to a specific remote IP address or host name, for example, my server test 2. And I can also specify a target directory here in my local user folder. It will just use the template name, and then it will upload it automatically. So that means when we're going into this server, you can see that here in this directory, we've got all the generated template files with all the variables that we have defined. But yeah, that's mainly most of the new stuff. Oh no, I forgot one problem that I had in all of the previous templates is how should I handle Docker Swarm? That's really complicated to program in a variable way, especially if you build the templates with different conditions and variable settings. And you also have to think about, okay, this needs to work for Docker Swarm. So therefore, I've made the decision to just split these two. So there is a specific and separate Swarm template formats, and I will only maintain Docker Compose templates here. And for those of you who want to use Docker Swarm, I will maintain a smaller list of Swarm-ready Docker Compose deployments here. But yeah, that's just this decision that I took to make the template development and the template maintenance much easier, because Docker Swarm introduces many, many different challenges and problems. So I thought, let's just separate these two. So yeah, that's it about the Boilerplates 0.2.0. Again, it's still a pretty early version, but as you can see, it's getting along. It's a long journey, and it's really exhausting, to be honest, guys. I've spent the last month completely programming and vibe coding and whatnot, so it was really exhausting. But I think it's on a good track, and the next 2 to 3 months, you will see a big announcement for Boilerplates version 0.3.0. That's gonna change everything. But I'm not gonna say too much about it, because I'm completely excited, but I know I need to be a little more patient, and I need to polish it really before I make a new update. But this certainly leads into that way. It's gonna have a more consistent templating format with a new runtime, with a new syntax or new delimiters that allows us to create our own custom templating engine or templating syntax. And we have much more consistency across the templates.json. I will also start updating the documentation. So again, if you have any questions, just connect with me on Discord if you want. And I hope you like Boilerplates. I hope you like where it's going. And of course, I'm going to catch you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.